Okay guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about carbon. So we talked about how weird water was last time, but carbon's also one of those things that does a lot of interesting stuff. It's a bit unusual that happens to be a foundation of how life is able to happen on Earth. So we'll talk about the ways that carbon's arranged. We'll talk about some of the major kinds of molecules that use carbon, and then we'll talk about something called functional groups, which are just like recurring little bits of atoms that tend to happen quite often in bigger molecules. Okay, so there's something called organic chemistry, and I was super confused in college when I signed up for organic chemistry because I didn't know this at the time, and I'm just like, okay, so we're going to learn about plants or vegetables, because we think of organic meaning without chemicals or anything, but in science organic chemistry just refers to things that contain carbon. So that can be living things, but it can also be things like gasoline, fossil fuels, different things like that. So organic compounds then are anything that contain carbon and hydrogen together, okay? So carbon has 4 valence electrons. We see it over here at number 6. And no, I don't have my fun iPad to circle everything today because it doesn't work at the school. Yeah. So carbon, 4 valence electrons. So carbon can form single, double, or triple covalent bonds, okay? So a single carbon atom can form up to 4 bonds. Sometimes those bonds are with other molecule or other atoms rather, sorry. Sometimes it's with itself. Sometimes it makes really long chains. So most commonly they form covalent bonds with hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. So you can see in the examples down below, a lot of those are carbon and hydrogen. There's not even a whole lot of oxygen in there. That's why they call gasoline typically a hydrocarbon, because there's a ton of hydrogen and a ton of carbon. That's kind of it. So the type and number of these covalent bonds affects the length of the carbon chain and the shape of the molecule. Okay, so carbon uses its valence electrons to form covalent bonds with other carbons. All right, we just talked about this. Hydrocarbons consist only of carbon and hydrogen. These hydrocarbons are combustible, by the way. So if you take organic chemistry in college, there's a lot of things that go boom. You can ask Miss Smith about that. She had to take organic chemistry. I took organic chemistry for health science majors, so it's a little bit different. We focused on the kind of things in your body. Yeah. Okay, carbon chains form the skeletons of most organic molecules. They vary in length, branching, double bond position, presence of rings. So in the bottom right-hand corner, we see a carbon ring that happens. Sometimes the double bonds make a huge difference. Like when we talk about fats in a couple of lessons, saturated versus unsaturated just depends on the double bonds in the carbon backbone. And there's a lot of parts in a cell that are made of different kinds of organic molecules. They're just showing you these examples. Okay, functional groups. I am telling you right now, this is going to be on your test. I'm going to ask you about some of these. Some of them are more common than others. The sulfhydryl group we don't see nearly as often in biology. The carboxyl group is going to be really important. That COOH often denotes an acid. So like amino acids and nucleic acids, somewhere in there they have a COOH maybe. Carbonyls, you see there's a double bond, so that changes what it does. Amino groups like amino acids, proteins, that kind of thing. Methyl groups and phosphate groups, but like I said, sulfhydryl is not as important. I'm not expecting you to memorize the molecules like the acetone, cysteine. I'm not expecting you to memorize those. But you're going to need to know that carbonyl is CO, carboxyl is COOH. Be expecting that on the Unit 1 test. Just putting that out there. Okay, so let's talk about what we do with those crazy functional groups. Okay, let's put some of this up so we can talk about it. Okay, so carbon makes large molecules called macromolecules. We're going to start doing prefixes and suffixes and studying those. Macro means large. So macromolecules are just large molecules. They refer to things like starches. Those are actually just really big chains of sugars, but we'll get more into that later. So the 4 classes, we're going to talk about these a lot in the next couple of lessons. Carbohydrates, proteins, nucleic acids, and lipids. So one of the things that kind of makes that these guys have in common is they're made of smaller subunits. So we're going to be talking about the difference between monomers and polymers in just a second. It just means that they tend to have a lot of repeating subunits. So these are all polymers. Why is it in the way? Hold on. Sorry, guys. Let's move that out of the way. Okay. So does not include true polymers and, okay. So lipids, all right. Lipids aren't really polymers. They're not really. They're also hydrophobic. We just kind of include them. We feel bad for them, so we leave them with the rest of them, okay? These are definitely polymers though. Okay, so along with carbon, nitrogen is an important element in building proteins and nucleic acids, and phosphorus is important in nucleic acids and some lipids. You can't see that word as lipids. Okay, so the word polymer means a chain-like macromolecules of similar or identical repeating units that are covalently bonded together. For our purposes, that's all a polymer is. You may have heard this word before, like polymer. I think there's like certain kinds of linings for trucks that they call polymers. Different kinds of materials for things are referred to as polymers. They just tend to have a lot of repeating structures in their molecules. So monomers are those subunits. Mono means one, poly means many. Okay, I might have gone too fast by that. I'm sorry. So I'm going to give, oh, sorry. Okay, so give you a second. Focus on that polymer versus monomer. Got it? Okay. Okay, so there's 2 kinds of reactions. This is also going to be on your unit test. Okay, a dehydration reaction. So when you're dehydrated, you lost a lot of water to your body and you're too dry. Okay, so a dehydration reaction. I am joining 2 monomers and losing a molecule of water. Okay, so the OH of one monomer bonds to the H of another monomer, forming H2O, which is then released. And then we have hydrolysis, which breaks the bond in a polymer by adding H2O. You need to know the difference between these 2 types of reactions. Okay, dehydration, I lost water. Hydrolysis, I break it together. Hydro means water. Lysis means to break or split apart. When we get a little bit into cells and microbiology, that's actually a thing that viruses do. So I guess that word's familiar to me, probably not to y'all. Okay, so in hydrolysis, basically it's just the reverse. Okay, so I take a water out to put them together, and I add a water to break them apart. Okay, so here is an example of a dehydration reaction. So when I want to make sucrose, which is table sugar, I put together a glucose and a fructose. And we can see in the picture here that the OH, or what is it, a hydroxyl group from our functional group chart, and our H right there, they join together and make a water and it's released. So then they have this covalent bond with this oxygen at the bottom. Okay, you're going to have to be able on your test to look at how many sugars I am putting together and then figure out how many atoms total are left. We'll work on some practice with that on your study guide. But don't panic about that right now, just be aware, okay? And then hydrolysis, we start with that sucrose, we add a water, and then we break it up. Your body does this all the time. Like if you ate starch and you need to convert that into sugar your body can use, you would use some of the water that you take in when you drink, and it can break that starch apart into individual glucoses that you can use to power your body. Pretty cool. Okay, so some of these questions are probably going to be the questions at the end of the PowerPoint. I'm not going to show you those right now. Those are going to be practice for another time. I hope this all made sense. Just be prepared for a more deep dive into these macromolecules next. So what I want to do is I want to show you your assignment for today, for those of you that are still watching this video. So let's talk about your assignment. If I can get the Zoom bar to cooperate, y'all. Okay, so go up to the top of this assignment. So what you're gonna do is I'm gonna show you some molecules on these slides, and you're gonna need to figure out how they go together and divide them into groups, okay? So introduction, what are living things made of? Common sense tells us that living things are somehow different from non-living things, but how deep does that difference run? Are living things made from different kinds of atoms than those in non-living things, different kinds of molecules? There may be as many as 10,000 different kinds of molecules in a living thing, but are there a few common patterns, a few common functions? So table 1 reviews the most common atoms found in living organisms and some of their properties. These atoms also occur in non-living things. As you work, notice if the atoms in your molecules follow the indicated bonding patterns. So the objects you will be sorting are basic building blocks or subunits or monomers of common macromolecules in living things. Do not look up the answers, use your own judgment. So this isn't like, oh, they got this group wrong, you know, I'm gonna get them. No, we wanna see if we can figure out what they have in common. So there's 42 little pictures that you wanna organize based on structural similarities, things to pay attention to. The elements, CHNOPS, I've heard it done like chomps or something. But carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and sulfur are the 6 most common elements in living things. Those are the chemical symbols that you more or less need to know just for biology AP. There may be a couple others thrown in there, like potassium's K, sodium is Na, but these are like the big ones. So look for the shape of the molecule, patterns within the molecule, and the ends of the molecule. So I'm just gonna throw a hint out there. Maybe, just maybe, you should rewind this video and look at the functional group chart, and that might be able to help you just a bit with some of this, huh? Okay, so here's this. What I want you to do, you have these pictures, I'll be real, they're kind of small for me to see. So I'm gonna make a new slide for my sort. So I put a new slide, and then I'm just gonna take this picture and, is it gonna let me move it to another slide? Copy, paste. Okay, so I can right click copy and paste it, and then look, I can make it bigger so I can look at it. All right, so I see a whole bunch of phosphate groups over here. Huh, there's like 3 phosphate groups there. Interesting. So let's see if there's something else that maybe has a similar structure to that. So I might not be able to get a good look at it till I paste it over here. Hey, what does that kind of look like, y'all? Is that the same? We see some nitrogens. It might be the same, maybe not. So I might decide to keep these 2 close together on the same slide, or I might decide to do something else. So each group you can make a new slide for. And you might even like put a little text box, like explain what you want, like what your thinking was. Why did you put those together? So I want you to sort all of those. Like I said, I want some rationale over why you made those groups the way you did. Talk about the elements, talk about functional groups, things like that. Make sure that you turn this in and submit it on Google Classroom. Some of y'all still aren't doing that. Just make sure you're doing that so I can get y'all your grade. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.